Hello, welcome back. Today we're going to be working on the torque tube and getting the PTO housing removed and sealed up. If that's something that you're interested in, stick around because it's coming up. Alright, so here we are over on the bench. I've moved my torque tube up on the bench where it's a little bit easier to work on. I've got it setting up on these blocks right here. And that's just going to make it easier to access my hardware on this PTO housing. Also, if y'all remember, I wanted to get that hand clutch out, and I've got a seal between the two reservoirs, basically the clutch reservoir and the hydraulic. That's right in there. Originally, I was not going to replace it, but now that I'm going to be in this position, it's up on the bench, I'm going to go ahead and pull that out and go ahead and replace that. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and pull the PTO housing off the tractor. It's looking like in order to get a couple of these bolts out up here, you've got to take off the face of the PTO housing, which won't be too bad. We'll just zip those off right there without giving access to these. So we'll go ahead and get rolling on that, and we'll flip over to time lapse and watch it. Okay, so I took the 3 bolts out of the cover here on the PTO housing and discovered that the housing front cover will actually not come off until these 2 bolts are out of the way. Evidently right behind that is part of this cover. So you have to basically undo all of them at the same time, and then just as you loosen it up, we'll be sliding that PTO housing towards us. And eventually we'll get past the stud that's sticking out, and that will allow the whole unit to come off, and then we take this off once it's disconnected from the torque tube. So start working on those next, get that loosened up, and then it'll come off. Alright, so we got all the bolts, or the nuts rather, out of the PTO housing. We'll go ahead and slide that off now. Of the washers there. So there is the gear, one of the gears there that drives it. Spin that around there and just kind of look, and it looks pretty good shape. All right. Set this off to the side here. Alright, so there's a couple of different gear makeups in there. So that transfers down. Got another gear right here, and we'll spin the input shaft over here. Just checking all the teeth. Thing looks really good in there. Lift this off. So I got an oil sealer right here that I'm going to replace, and then there's a little gasket. To be honest with you, it looks more like it's shims. It is shims. All right. Just need to keep track of that. So now, yeah, because that doesn't have, so it just slides, it just moves it forward in there. There's a Let's just pull that whole thing straight out of here. Alright, so there's the shaft. There's a little shift fork that moves this gear right here on that shaft. And that thing is tight. Bearing down here on the back side. There's some crud in there. So this gear here should be sliding. I know PTO works, it's just not sliding at the moment. Shouldn't take much. So it just slides on that shaft. And that thing is really tight on that. I wonder why. Bearing looks to be pretty good shape as well. Alright, I'm going to clean out that housing. Flip this here where you can see it. There's some crud down in there, which is expected. Yeah, that pan doesn't take much to get that thing out. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to clean this thing up. We'll flip over time lapse and I'll get all that wiped down, cleaned up good. And then I'll clean out the, or off the bottom side of where it bolts up. I've got a new gasket coming for right here as well. That one peeled right out of there pretty easy. So get that all, mating surface all cleaned up good. Having this torque tube up on the bench too is going to make it pretty easy when I go to assemble that hydraulic pump, which is right here, and then that PTO housing. So I'll clean all that up, and then, you know, I'll put the pump on while it's like this, and then gravity will hold it in place. I don't have to worry about fighting with it and fighting with any of the gaskets. Just make it go, should make it go pretty good. I'm going to clean up all these threads here. I'll take my wire wheel on my drill and just clean them up. That'll make the nuts go on there a lot easier. Alright, let's flip over time lapse and we'll start cleaning this thing up. Okay, so I started cleaning and I realized that there's a seal, oil seal right here on the lever that engages the PTO. So I decided I need to go ahead and replace that while I've got this thing torn down. I'm waiting on some other gaskets anyway, so I'll just make one more order and get that seal and a few other items. So it's got the typical bolt with the angle on the end of it that goes in the hole to set it. So I just loosened that up and then just twisted the crud off of the lever and it just come right off of there. So we'll drive that in and then that will allow the lever piece that you see there in the bottom to come out inside the housing. And that's a tight fit in there for sure, but it'll fit coming out. So I'm gonna go grab my hammer and go ahead and just tap that thing out. Alright, so I'm just going to gently tap it. See it coming out on the inside there. Probably can just push it through. I'm just going to hit it with my screwdriver. You can see there's quite a bit of oil and stuff just setting in there. So it stopped. I think it's because it's hitting. Yeah, it is. So we'll have to rotate this up. Kind of hard to do when you're using one hand. All right, get that rotated up. And then we'll go ahead and tap that hopefully on in there. Yeah, I will have to use my hammer and a tap. So anyway, we'll get that thing out and then I can see what that seal is and if there's probably some bushings or something in there to keep that thing straight as well. Check those out. Everything feels good and tight. Okay, so here's a little quick tip for you on that idler gear that I've been working on. You can see right here we've got the idler gear shaft, and it's showing there's a pin. And so I was looking all over the back of that housing for a place to remove that pin. It states down here in this paragraph, it says remove the shaft from the idler gear. This shaft has a key or pin to keep it from turning. It must be pressed in the direction so the key or pin is not pushed through the roller bearing. So the diagram showed pins, so I didn't know what I had. So I started messing around with this thing. And you can see the little key cut right down here at the bottom. So a pin could slide in there, key, whatever. It's on both sides. I couldn't see anything, so I cleaned it out, got my pick, cleaned it out, and what ended up being was a key. So I saw the top edge of this key in the opening, so I knew that's where it needed to come out, but the shaft was not gonna, it just didn't want to come out. What ended up being the problem was right here, you can kind of see that in the video, that little lip on this housing had been knocked in, like somebody had tried to hit that with a hammer at one point, and it had pushed it down just enough where it wouldn't clear this edge of the idler shaft. So I flipped it over, took my punch on the opposite side as you saw, and I didn't hit it real hard, but just enough, and then it pushed that out of the way, and then the shaft come on out. So if you're working on one of those, be careful, because if I would have drove this, if I didn't see the pin, I would have drove it down, then this would have just went right through all of my roller bearings that were inside. So there's two sets of them. There's a set on this side and a set on the other. So if I would have drove it the other way, it just would have eat those up. Anyway, probably would have not got all the way through because it would have gotten a big bind. But anyway, that's a quick tip on that if you're pulling that out. Honestly, I really don't know why I pulled it out. There's no problem with it. I just got curious. I saw it in there and it wasn't moving. So I thought, well, what's the problem here? But anyway, that's how that works. So now I know, and now you know if you're going to tackle one on your own. But at this point, I guess the disassembly for the PTO housing is completed. We'll clean up, I'll order some parts. All right, that will conclude the video. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe, share the video, and leave a comment below. Stick around for the next videos coming up on this WD project.